Hello and welcome everybody to session 8 of the Introduction to English Language Teaching course. This session is a continuation of our previous session on classroom management. Shall we first consider the objectives of session 8? So at the end of this, you should be able to explain what is teacher talk. That is, what do we understand when we speak of teacher's talk? Then you should be able to identify some strategies that will help to reduce teacher talk and increase student talk. You will be able to recognize the importance of the teacher's manner of speaking. Now here we will be focusing on the aspects of teacher's voice, particularly related to quantity, quality, audibility, variety in tone of voice, and voice conservation. You will learn how to maintain discipline in the classroom, as well as be able to describe how to create a positive classroom environment. The focus here will be on the teacher's role and the student's role. Now, session 8 will be delivered in 4 parts. Now, this will help you to listen and learn at a comfortable pace. So now we will begin with part 1 of session 8. So as you can see, at the end of part 1, you will be able to explain what is teacher talk. Then identify the characteristics of teacher talk and recognize the importance of the teacher's manner of speaking. Focusing on quantity, quality, audibility, variety in tone of voice, and voice conservation. Now, in our previous session, that is session 7, we learned what must be given attention in order to develop a conducive learning environment. Now, try and recall some points that we learned. Well, we learned what is involved in classroom management, as well as the importance of classroom management. Then we learned how to create a positive classroom environment. Then we learned how to arrange the classroom to create a positive physical environment. You learned how to arrange the chairs for group work, the location of the teacher's table, the blackboard, the importance of proper ventilation and lighting. We also learned the importance of making effective eye contact with our students and the importance of selecting and using appropriate gestures that would convey meaning, as well as gestures that would enable you to manage the class. Let us now begin by discussing what some common characteristics of teacher talk are. Now, to prompt you to think about the characteristics of teacher's talk, I would like you to engage in this exercise. So, I will give you about 3 minutes for you to do it. So, the exercise requires you to think. Do teachers have a special way of talking, or are there special characteristics of teacher talk? What do you think? And list some of these special ways or characteristics of teacher talk that you can think of. So I'll give you 3 minutes to engage in this activity. Well, now that would have given you a little, uh, this activity would have enabled you to get your schema going on what teacher talk is. Okay, so we'll uh, have a little discussion and then you can match your list with the list that is provided in the next slide. Now, Chaudhran, he pointed out that researchers have observed that ESL teachers have certain special features when they talk in the classroom. What he showed was that they modified their language to make themselves understood by the learners. And he noted several modifications. Now see if your list matches his. It's given at the bottom in this slide. Now, some of these modifications are, one is slower rate of speech. And that's true, isn't it? Haven't you noticed that you speak at a slower rate in the classroom, especially when you have to explain something or give the students some instruction? The other time when we modify our speech is pronunciation. Our pronunciation becomes more exaggerated or sometimes we simplify. Now, for example, if you take the phonemes per and fur. Now, usually the Sri Lankan learners have a tendency to mix them up. Now, when you teach them in the classroom, haven't you noticed that you kind of exaggerate those phonemes and use, for example, the word platform, you say platform, meaning you want to show the difference, or pineapple. So, or when you want to show the difference between a whole and a hall. So, you slowly, at a slow pace, as well as you exaggerate those sounds. Now, the other is pauses. There are more pauses in the classroom talk than when we engage in natural talk. And that is natural because we want our students to absorb what we are teaching them. Then we have the other which is mentioned here, and that is repetition. And you and I will agree, we do repeat quite a bit when we teach our learners. And why do we do this? Because we want them, we want to emphasize some what we say when we tend to repeat. Another observation was louder speech. So that's true. We may speak louder because of maybe outside disturbances. A further observation was longer passages of speech. And that's true. Now, it's obvious that we will have longer passages of speech because when you give an explanation, you need to talk longer. So your speech obviously is for a longer period of time. Then we also tend to use more basic vocabulary. This, of course, depends on the proficiency of the learner. But most often, for example, if we have to say, talk to the students and we have the choice between occupation and job, if the learners are at a lower proficiency level, then what we do is we say job instead of occupation, or holiday instead of vacation, or trip instead of journey. And we use shorter sentences. And why do we do that? Because if we make complicated long sentences, the students will find it difficult to understand. So these were some of the observations these researchers made, where English language teachers tend to change or modify their speech, particularly in the classroom, for the benefit of the learners. Now we are going on to another aspect, and that is the importance of teacher talk. So before we start that, I would like you to engage in this exercise. Just take a few minutes like earlier, 3 minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes to do this. Just think, do you think teacher talk is important? And list 4 reasons why you think teacher talk is important. So I'll give you 3 minutes to complete this activity. Okay, time's up. So we now you might have been able to think and gather some points as to the importance of teacher talk. So the question is teacher talk important? Now, according to Nguyen, teacher talk is of crucial importance for several reasons. Now, first, teacher talk is vital for classroom organization as well as for acquiring language. Now, secondly, it is because of the teacher's language that their teaching plans succeed or fail. Now, if you take a classroom, the teacher has a plan. She learns how to organize, she thinks how she's going to organize a group activity or whatever activity she's going to do in class. And then, unless she uses her language and talks and explains it to the students, then the activity is not going to succeed. So, teacher talk is needed when in that event, and the teacher's plans will either succeed or fail depending on how she's able to express herself and inform the students what they are supposed to do. Thirdly, in the Sri Lankan context, the teacher is the primary source that will help the learners to understand and use the target language. Now, in this instance, the English language. And as you know, in some areas, the teacher is the only source through which the learners are exposed to the English language. We now come to a further point with regard to teacher's talk, and that is to do with our voice. So you will likely agree that the teacher's voice is the most important instrument that we use in the classroom. So we will now see how the quantity, quality, audibility, and tone of voice impact on creating an effective learning environment. So before we go on to that point, can you guess what percentage of class time is occupied with teacher talk? Just think. Shall we see? Well, according to Hattie, in general, about 70 to 80% of the class time is occupied with teacher talk. This is, of course, in a general classroom. And another researcher, he observed that interaction and engagement between students was low when the teacher was talking and increased when they were working in labs or in groups. But strangely, according to the findings of Ziegler and Davidson, they noted that in the language class, there was a sharp increase in the teacher's talk and a decrease in the student talk. So now the question is it how much time should a teacher talk? Well, as Gava explains, the extent to which a teacher talks will depend on several factors. The teacher's lesson, the type of activities involved, and the level of language proficiency of the learners. Wouldn't you agree with that? For instance, now when you are introducing, say, a new grammar point, or clarifying the students' understanding of what you have just taught them, you will definitely talk more. Isn't that true? Or I suppose if you're telling a story, or maybe even interacting informally with the learners or students, you will find that it is the teacher who often initiates the conversation and probably asks questions to get the students to talk. So now that is natural because most learners, when they are new, they don't speak up. So we as teachers try to give them that opportunity to talk by asking questions. So obviously we are talking more. But the question is that wrong? Well, there is no definite way of deciding on the ideal amount of time that the teacher should talk and the time that the student should talk. But one aspect that plays a pivotal role in the is the language proficiency of the learners. Now, if the students are more proficient in the language, you would have noticed that they will be confident and they will ask questions. When others are speaking, they will add their comments. So then the teacher doesn't have to talk so much. But if the proficiency level of the students, the language proficiency is low, they will rarely initiate a conversation or ask questions. So then who does it? It's the teacher. The teacher starts the conversation, the teacher steers the conversation. So that naturally, that means that the teacher talk is increased. But though this is the case, it provides the opportunities for the students to use the language. Now we will consider another important aspect with regard to teacher talk, and that is audibility. That is, can the teacher be heard? Now when we speak, we have to ensure that all our learners can comfortably hear what we say, whether they are in the front or whether they are in the back rows of the classroom. We would want to avoid speaking either too loudly or too softly, because both can be irritating to the learners and will not help. Now, if we talk too softly, the learners at the back rows will not hear. Then what happens is they will stop listening. Their minds will go on to other things. So it will not be helpful. Remember that it is more important to have good voice projection than volume. Of course, our volume must be adequate, as I said earlier, to reach the back rows of the classroom. So here is where we have to learn how to use our diaphragm. You will learn about that a little later. Now, with regard to voice, we come to voice quality. That is important. We have to ensure that the teacher's voice is pleasant to the listener. So sometimes it might be useful to check the quality of our voice. And we can do by getting the opinion of others, maybe a friend or colleague, or listening to a recording of our voice. Because you would have noticed some people have a very rasping, grating voice, and that can be quite unpleasant. And people do not like to listen very much. So not listenable. So if we have a weakness, then we need to improve the quality of our voice. Our voice quality and volume will vary according to the type of activity. Now, that's another uh, point that we need to keep in mind. For instance, when we are giving instructions or introducing a new activity in a lesson, our voice quality would be motivating, encouraging, then the students are also encouraged. So this has to do with our tone of voice. We have to vary our tone of voice when we speak and for different purposes. Now, for example, if you notice that the students are noisy or they're doing something that they should not be engaged in, what is the tone of voice we will use when we want to stop them or make them quiet? Here, we would, to get their attention, we don't have to raise our volume, but we can increase the intensity of our voice. Our voice should reflect firmness in such an instance. Now, we also need to vary our pace and pitch. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the pace and pitch is we won't be talking at the same pace like a monologue, same tone, no. We will at times quicken the pace or raise our pitch. On the other hand, there are times when we will slower our pace and lower our pitch. Like for example, if you're something very excited to tell the students and you are enthusiastic about it, obviously you'll speak a little faster than usual. But on the other hand, if you want to convey to them some very important information, then we usually reduce our pace. So varying our voice is good in a classroom. It's very reasonable, and it's, uh, students, and it's good for the teacher as well as for the students. Now we come to a very important point with regard to teacher talk, and we need to really take it to heart. That is, we should always be sensitive in the way we talk to learners to create a conducive learning atmosphere. We should avoid being abrupt and curt. You would have noticed some teachers are so rude sometimes. The way they talk to the learners or students, they say, stand up, or sit down, you read, repeat, repeat. So rather, our voice needs to be friendly and courteous. Remember that we become role models for our students. So if we talk in a very rude, abrupt, curt way, the students are going to imitate our manner of speaking. And sometimes they may think in English we must speak like that. So we need to be careful and always be friendly, courteous, firm sometimes, but pleasant. Now we come to where we as teachers need to take care of our voice, because many of us develop frequent sore throats. This is because we over exercise our vocal cords, and especially when raising our voice. So here is where learning voice conservation is very important. So to conserve our voice, this requires proper breath control. We need to have proper posture. We shouldn't slouch or slump forward or such. And this is where I said we would come to this word, the diaphragm, which is at the upper part of the abdomen, under the ribs. So we have to fill our lungs and speak clearly, uh, but at the same time varying our voice throughout the classroom session. not talking at the same pitch or pace. So in that way, we conserve our voice. So that brings us to the end of this part of our session. So just to summarize what we discussed here, would you be able to now, at the end of this session, explain what is teacher talk? Have you been able to identify the characteristics of teacher talk? And did you recognize the importance of the teacher's manner of speaking? As we focused on quantity, quality, audibility, variety in tone of voice, and voice conservation. So this brings us to the end of this session, but we will continue our discussion in part 2 of our next session. Hello and welcome everybody to part 2 of session 8 of the Introduction to English Language Teaching course. This is a continuation of our discussion on classroom management. In this session, you will be able to recognize the importance of teacher talk, focusing on the advantages, disadvantages, and use in learning the language. We will also learn techniques to reduce teacher talk. Now, teacher talk is a valuable source of learning a second language. The teacher's talk is a very valuable source because it is authentic language spoken in the classroom. So whether the teacher is the first language is English or the second language is English, nevertheless the students benefit from the teacher's talk. Now, especially in a country like ours, where English is not the first language, the students are able to pick up everyday words and expressions that the teacher uses. So the teacher talk becomes very useful. Now, for good classroom management too, teacher talk is necessary. For instance, when you have to give clear instructions, tell students what to expect, maybe to call students by their names and other reasons. Even see, for example, if you praise a student or when you request a student to try again, you say, okay, try, and the language, the expressions you use, the students are unconsciously learning the language. So your talk is very valuable. Students' language learning is enhanced when they listen to the authentic target language spoken by the teacher. Now, usually in an ESL learning, for example, in a listening lesson, the students are provided with a recorded dialogue in specific settings for language practice. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the importance of that. No, that is valuable. But the value of teachers' talk in the classroom is that it gives opportunity for the learners to listen to authentic speech. In addition, it also provides the learners practice in enhancing their listening skills. And if the teacher can add a few jokes or an anecdote, the students are even going to learn these, and that will improve their language skills as well. Further, teacher talk is valuable because it provides the best model for learning a new language. As I mentioned earlier in our earlier sessions, the students can observe how the words are pronounced because they are able to see how the teacher's lips and tongue move, how she articulates the sounds of the words, because they can see and observe how she does it or he does it. For example, now, as I mentioned even earlier, when students have difficulties with pronouncing certain phonemes, then Observing how the teacher places her tongue, how she opens her mouth, how she rounds it out, these all enable the learners to unconsciously learn the language and improve in their language skills. Now, another advantage of teacher talk is that if the students have difficulty in understanding what is taught, say, for example, you teach something and they cannot understand it, then you can give an explanation that is easier to understand in a helpful and reassuring way. So, there again, they will be learning their language. This too is helpful for their language enhancement. Other advantages of teacher talk are when the teachers make a presentation on a specific topic. Now, you take real topics, real subjects, real issues. Like, for example, if you take pollution, or for now in the English grade 9 book, there is a section there on extinct animals. Now, if the teacher makes a presentation on that in the class, say for instance, then the students are going to learn the phrases, the vocabulary that is essential for that particular topic. Like now, the vocabulary that comes in that lesson is words like extinct, skeleton, fossils, ferocious, carnivore, mammoth, canine tooth. You must be familiar with those words and that lesson. So this is, in fact, preferable, I would say, to a prepared text, not like a reading text, because they are here, they are listening to a topic. The teacher is talking in authentic language, so in an authentic situation. So they are able to learn the language in a natural way. Now, for example, after the teacher say gives the presentation, then this can be followed by a general discussion on the topic that the teacher had spoken about. Then the students may be able to give comments, even if they're short comments. Then they will be able to enhance their listening skills as well as their speaking skills. So, teacher talk enhances the language of the learner. Now, a further advantage of teacher talk in improving the language of the learners is when the teacher asks questions. Now, you're very familiar with that. In fact, we did that to a great extent earlier in some of our sessions. Now, how does the teacher's language on that occasion or those occasions help the learners? This prompts the learners to respond, and it enhances their speaking skills because they have to respond to your question. Even having a general chat on everyday topics using natural language will help the learners acquire the language. Just normal general talk about their pet, about the family, something happened. They could talk on that, and that will also be enhancing their language. Now we looked at some of the advantages of teacher talk and also how the teachers talk, the language the teacher uses in her or his talk, how it enhances the students' language skills. Now we'll look at some of the disadvantages of teacher talk. So while a teacher has to speak, there needs to be a balance. Now, if the teacher talks more than needed, then the students don't get the opportunity to talk, and this can be quite demotivating to the learners. Also, what often happens is when the teacher talks too much, the students stop even listening. An added disadvantage is that since we want to talk, we will not be listening to what the students are saying. We are thinking now, what are we going to say next? What are we going to say next? And we don't listen now, what are the students telling us? Another danger is talking for the learners or students. You know what do you mean by that? Now, for instance, if you say talking about something, or even if a student is explaining something, and that student hesitates, or maybe takes time to give an answer, what happens is sometimes we provide the answer. So we need to be careful about that. So as we learned earlier, give wait time. Give the student time to figure out the answer, and we can step in and provide a little clue or help only if it is needed. The other thing is that we must be careful about is that we don't use difficult language when we are explaining a particular point. Now there are very technical terms that we use, like that are used for words. Like for example, now even I just mentioned to you phoneme. Now we won't go to a class and say phoneme or syntax or something like that, because that will be above the students. So you explain it letters of the alphabet, sounds of the letters. So then the students are able to understand if we use language that they can understand. Otherwise, it will be of no use. The learners are not going to improve in their language learning and in their speaking skills and such. Now, it's true that for many, in the past, a lot of the time the teachers spoke, and in fact, it is called talk and chalk. But things have changed now, and there is more. We have the communicative language approach where we give students more opportunities to speak, so they get involved, and then there are group activities and such. So there are lots of ways in which the students can improve their language skills. So it is vital that we give opportunities for these language learners to improve their skills as much as possible. So we need to give them opportunities to practice their language. Especially in the Sri Lankan context, we would need to do that because they, like when they go back home, they don't have the opportunity to practice, especially in the rural areas. So now how can we give them practice? So two ways that we can do that is to provide practice, like to give them opportunities for real chat, that I mentioned earlier. Just have a little chat, personal questions about real people in real situations. So that gives them an opportunity now to know how to interact, how to talk in a natural setting that is outside the classroom also. Then when we give instructions, like the expressions we use, the phrases we use, now we need to make sure that they understand that, because for the smooth functioning of the classroom also, they need to know what these phrases are. So we have to ensure that we give this instruction to the students and that they learn those expressions. And as you will see here, now certain expressions, like when we give instructions, please open your book, now turn to this, now the whole class please. Now these are phrases which they can learn quickly, and they will be able to also learn courteous speech because they are saying please and thank you and such. See, even commendation, well done, excellent. So those are little word expressions that they could learn quickly, helps them to function in class, and also they will feel a certain amount of accomplishment. They have learned something. In addition, we could also teach them polite language and expressions like excuse me, I'm sorry, thank you, I don't understand. So these, by our using it, when we speak to them, they will be able to grasp this, and then they will be able to use it themselves. And as I said earlier, it will be quick also, because these are very simple phrases to learn. Now, as you grow with more experience and such, you will be able to adjust your manner of speaking, and you will also be more conscious of the proficiency level of the group of learners. So those things come also with experience. But certain things like pace and speed, as we learned earlier, your pace, don't talk too fast, neither too slow. Try to adjust it to a natural pace. Also speak naturally, not affected with an unnatural accent. We would not want to avoid that. Also, we need to consider the background of the learner when we choose our language, because we need to adapt our language accordingly. So they like draw on what they already know of the language and use words and expressions that they could learn and build on it. We are not saying that we should only use what they know, but when we give our instructions and explanations and such, just build on what they already know. Now, there are several techniques that can be used to balance tutor and student talk time in a class. Now, what are these techniques? One way is by managing error correction. So we do not want to spend too much time, finding fault with them. Give them opportunities to talk, and of course, we do need to correct them. But as we learned under error correction, there are ways and means of correcting students. So, but we don't want to make that the focus of our class time. Another way is by managing questioning and eliciting answers from students. So there again, we use these opportunities. We have to talk, but when we do so, we have to make sure that we encourage the students to talk. We give them the opportunities. Now, one good way we could do that is by giving group and pair work. Because as we learned, one of the researchers said when the group and pair work was set, the teacher talks less, but the students talk more. So that gives them practice. That group and pair work is one way that we could enhance, like they could enhance their speech. This also gives them practice in, like they could practice dialogues, grammar exercises. So those are, and also we have to make sure that we make these occasions enjoyable, so that then they will be motivated to talk. So managing questioning and eliciting is another helpful method to achieve balance in teacher and student talk time. And even when we ask questions, now if we, so for instance, if you ask questions from a group of learners whose proficiency level is higher, then we could actually give open-ended questions and ask them to give their opinions, their views. So now this would require more than just a one-word answer. They would have to think and comment at length. Of course, when it comes to the lower level proficiency students, then of course you will have to give them easier tasks and guidance as well. Also, as we learned, we need to give sufficient time, wait time for them to give the response. So that too will decrease teacher talk time and increase student talk time. There are more ways to reduce teacher talk time. Some teachers have a habit, sometimes we may be guilty of it, repeating what the student says. Now this is to be avoided as it slows the pace of the lesson, and also it reflects a teacher-centered atmosphere. Now you take for instance, what I have shown here on the slide. Now the teacher only had to respond with a yes to the student. Now instead of that, she repeats the response that the student gave. So if the teacher repeats students' answers habitually, what's going to happen? Much valuable classroom time is going to be wasted. So we need to be careful about avoiding echoing or repeating what the student says. Another habit that teachers should avoid is explaining. Now, teachers should offer explanations only when warranted. That is, if the students, like now when you look at their faces, you feel, okay, these students have not really understood. They look puzzled and they indicate that they have not understood what the teacher is saying. You can see that. Now, we have to then cultivate the ability to provide concise explanations without excess of words. So you can give a short answer and then pause and observe if the class is satisfied. But if you find that they need a little further explanation, then go ahead. Also, another thing that we could use is gestures. Sometimes we don't need to talk, but our very gestures can explain. Or even visuals. We can even use visuals for greater clarity rather than sometimes us explaining too much. You take, for instance, this with the slide. I tried to capture on this the visual that I actually got from the internet. And this was how the prepositions, three prepositions, in, on, and at, were taught to students. Now, you notice it's a very clear, well thought out visual and illustrates this basic teaching approach. So this will help the students to assimilate more easily what is taught. Now, as teachers, that's another thing that we need to be progressive. We want to search out new ways to teaching language more productively. So rather now, that's where we could like reduce the teacher's talk and increase the student talk, because now if we are alert to getting some things like these charts, visuals, and other activities that could promote the student talk, then we would listen our talk. So we won't then be having to explain too much. This visual will give half of the explanation practically. So today we are very fortunate because we have the internet, and the internet provides a host of material that we could use in our classroom. So make use of it. And effective visuals are remembered better. And you remember that lesson that we covered in our classroom management. Now we come to another way in which we could avoid or reduce teacher talk, and that is by avoiding self-answering. Now, if you pose a question to the students, let them answer. Why is this important? Because asking questions is an important way of enhancing students' learning and also promoting the students to think. So in giving their answers, students gain practice in articulating their views. So that's another way we could help our students by asking questions. They are purposeful questions, then giving the wait time for the students to think, and then giving them that opportunity to answer. They are able to now articulate what their thinking is and views are. So if the teacher provides the answer, then to the question that she or he posed, that student is deprived of that precious learning opportunity. Now, here is an activity that actually, this is actually not an activity, it is a summary of what we learned today in our session. Now, at the end of the session, did you recognize the importance of teacher talk, the advantages, the disadvantages, and how the teacher's language would benefit the students? We learned that teacher talk helps the students to acquire the English language. They get authentic language input and practice in listening to natural speech. They have an opportunity to improve in their pronunciation because they can see and hear the teacher. Now the disadvantage is that if the teacher talks too much, the students don't get an opportunity to practice their newly learned language. Since often it is the English language teacher who is the primary model. So we need to be sensitive when we speak to our learners. We need to be kind, we need to be courteous. So those are some of the things that we learn, because we learned that if we don't speak like in a courteous, kind manner, the students are going to imitate us. Then next we learn techniques to reduce teacher talk. You remember? We learned that we must give students time to think and speak, not providing the answer quickly. Also, to talk slowly but naturally. Then to assign pair and group work because that will give the students an opportunity to talk and reduce teacher talk. We also learned how we could use gestures, visuals, give them clues instead of us talking. So that also will reduce teacher talk. So what we learned today emphasizes the importance of moving away now from that teacher-centered pedagogy to student-centered learning or pedagogy, where the students now must be given the opportunity to interact, to talk, and improve their language skills. So this brings us to the end of our session today. In part 3, which is to follow, we will consider another feature of classroom management, and that is discipline. Thank you. Hello and welcome everybody to part 3 of session 8 of the Introduction to English Language Teaching course. This session is a continuation of our previous session on classroom management. This session will focus on classroom discipline, rules and procedures. So by the end of this part, you should be able to recognize the challenges faced by ESL teachers in maintaining discipline in the classroom. Also, you should be able to understand the importance of implementing rules and procedures in the classroom and identify some strategies that can help you to maintain discipline in the classroom. Maintaining discipline in the classroom is a central feature of classroom management. We usually associate the word discipline with punishment. But Cummins and Harmer, they explain that discipline also has the thought of being an act of teaching students self-control. Now others point out that discipline is the structure that helps the child fit into the real world happily and effectively. It is the foundation for the development of the child's own self-discipline. Classroom discipline and management are valued from both a social and a pedagogical perspective. From a social perspective, the discipline strategies used by the teacher are viewed as being a powerful force to promote students' sense of responsibility in the classroom, as well as the long-term benefits that will help to produce more responsible citizens. From a pedagogical perspective, researchers have pointed out that a right degree of classroom discipline is needed to create a conducive learning atmosphere. So even the most carefully planned lessons will be ruined by misbehavior. And we know that misbehavior in the classroom distracts the process of learning and teaching. Now, if we consider the structure of a lesson in an English language class, it is composed of various communicative activities. And these require the students to participate actively. So now in an ESL class, the students usually have more opportunities to speak, to talk, to read aloud, to even argue with each other than in the classes of other subjects. So when the students engage in maybe pair work or group work, particularly when it has to do with speech, the level of noise in the classroom naturally increases. And also there is the risk of chaos and disruptive behavior. Particularly is this found when you teach young learners. That may be your experience as well. Then again, in the Sri Lankan classroom, there are additional problems that can contribute to disruptive behavior. For example, if there are large classes, usually around 40 or more students in the class, then another contributory factor is the multiple language proficiency levels of the students. So that too can cause disruption and misbehavior. Now, these problems could erupt, such as disruptive talking, inaudible responses. Some students might even sleep in class. Also, some habitually do not complete their homework, or some might be unwilling to speak in English. These are just a few that I'm mentioning. So, how are we going to address this issue? For one thing is, the teacher, the language teacher, her or his role demands that they be uh, kind to the students, be giving loving care. They are loving caregivers. They have to promote genuine communication. Another thing is they need to help to develop positive attitudes towards language learning, to motivate, to encourage the learners to engage in learning the language. Also, they are called upon to create a non-threatening learning environment, to make the students feel a sense of belonging, to help them feel self-confident, to make them independent learners. So these are some of the expectations of the language teacher. Now, at the same time, the language teacher is called upon to maintain discipline in the classroom, to manage the class effectively when activities are carried out, to make sure that the discipline does not have a negative effect on the students, that the disciplinary strategies that we use are appropriate. So, for example, it is now known, in early days they used to practice this, but now it is known that students who are kept after school, that does not significantly change their behavior or attitude. So we need to choose appropriate disciplinary strategies to overcome misbehavior in the classroom. So as Lewis points out, the teacher's role in the classroom is actually a formidable challenge. And in some instances, it has even contributed to some teachers having job stress and burnout. In fact, some of you probably have experienced this. And an emotionally stressed teacher will have difficulty in adopting an appropriate disciplinary strategy. So to create the right balance between a caring environment and a controlled one which ensures that there is discipline in the classroom is not an easy task. So then, what strategies or steps can the language teacher take to address these issues? First, the teacher must have a classroom management plan that clearly lays down the rules and regulations for the class. That's very important. Then next, the students must be made aware of the teacher's position, opinion, and views on matters of discipline in the classroom. For example, the students must be made aware of the teacher's stance with regard to attendance, punctuality, homework, dress, seating, so just to name a few. So the teacher must also have high behavioral expectations. So these are procedures and rules that are taught to students to encourage positive behaviors and prevent problem behaviors. Now, the attitude of the teacher to the needs and expectations of the students is very important. Now, a teacher who is aware of of students' expectations will avoid boring classes. So, what does this call for on the part of the teacher then? This means that the teacher would have to plan and conduct interesting and active classroom sessions, because boredom is known to result in disruptive behavior. A further point that teachers need to take into consideration is that they must consistently be impartial by avoiding having favorites, showing preference and prejudice to students in the classroom. So a teacher must have a positive attitude towards learning by taking an interest in the subject and in the students, and be sensitive to students' reactions to what is happening in the classroom. And a further point is that it is important that the teachers themselves avoid breaking the code of conduct. The code of conduct was drawn up most often together with the students. So it has to be adhered to at all times by the teacher. Now, how is it that a code of conduct can be drawn up? Now, the teacher and the students must mutually agree upon a code of conduct. Of course, with young learners, it's a little different. They have to be given specific rules and a code of conduct that they can understand. Like, for example, you could give them a colorful chart indicating what the rules for the class are. However, in the case of adult learners in the higher grades, this can be done by negotiation and discussion between the teachers and the students. So then what happens is then the learners or the students take responsibility for their own behavior. For example, rules can be drawn up in the classroom, rules, that is what has to be adhered to in the classroom, like arriving late to class, interrupting other students when they speak, bringing food and drinks into the class, failing to do assigned homework, not paying attention and talking with others while the class is being conducted. So these are just some of the points that I just thought I mentioned. There's some rules that pertain to outside the classroom, would relate to behavioral expectations in the canteen, in the playground, at the library, in the corridors. So these are some areas where proper rules and regulations need to be drawn up. The classroom rules that are drawn up should also be practical. The rules must be simple, specific, and worded clearly and stated in positive terms whenever possible. For example, if they are to, for example, if the words are like, if you take the rule, like, for example, if you take the rule, be positive, a positive rule, be on time to school, rather than don't be late to school. So avoid the don'ts. Don't have many don'ts. Make it more positive. Then also make it simple. For example, if you say, it is better to say talk in a whisper when working with a partner, rather than a complicated sentence like maintain a reasonable vocal level when working with a peer. So that is complicated, that cannot be understood easily. Rather, a simple sentence is sufficient. Also, the rules need to be stated in behavioral terms. These rules have to be measurable and observable. Now, to take an example that is on the slide here, a measurable and observable rule would be Go straight to your seat when you enter the classroom. So you can see the student going to the seat and taking her or his seat in the classroom. On the other hand, if you say, come to the classroom ready to work, that is very vague. And it's not easy to measure and observe whether that student has done that. The other is enforceable rules. Can you enforce it? For example, if you say, tell the student, don't move, is that practical and enforceable? But rather, if you say, keep your hands on the desk, then you can enforce it. So that needs to be taken into consideration when drawing up rules. So as we said, they should be simple, specific, worded clearly, be positive, be measurable and observable, and enforceable. Now, there are some other strategies too that you can use to when there is misbehavior or you want to administer some discipline. One of these strategies is to use a little humor, especially in the event that there is a small disruption. This usually helps and reduces any confrontations. So try it, use a little humor. Then use some low profile intervention. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, for example, if, for instance, if it is just one single student who is causing the disruption, it may be good for the teacher to handle that particular student in a discreet, quiet way so that the others in the class are not distracted. Also, take steps to recognize and support the students who behave appropriately. So sometimes what happens is we concentrate on the students who misbehave, but rather and leave out the students who actually behave properly. So take time, recognize and support these students who behave properly. Appreciate it. Also address behavioral issues quickly and wisely. Yes, we do not want to let time go by because then it's very difficult. So quickly but wisely, in a way that we will avoid any major confrontations with the students. Now, if there is a serious case of misbehavior, in which case, what indiscipline action can be taken? Act immediately, as mentioned earlier. So when a rule is broken, act immediately. Now, for example, if the student has not brought the books or speaks to another student during class, we can act immediately. And also talk to that student just after the class. After the class is over, immediately call the particular student and talk to that person. Then that individual student will be able also to tell you if there is any issue that has cropped up. So, because if the discipline is delayed, it will be difficult to handle. Now, if this indiscipline if the misbehavior is very, very serious, then what you can do is stop the class. Clearly show the students that the behavior is not acceptable and inform the students why their behavior is not acceptable. Only after they have realized that and the class is quieted, restart the class only after the situation improves. Now, what are some other strategies that you can take to ensure the smooth running of your classroom and avoiding any confrontations with the students? One is reseating. Make the student who is behaving badly sit in a different place immediately. Have the troublesome students sit in the front seats or separate troublesome students, preventing them sitting together. So that is important. Don't allow these troublesome students to sit together you'll note who those troublesome students are. Then another is change the activity. Why would that be important? Because, like for example, uh, if they are doing from an oral activity, you can change it to something to do with writing or a listening task. So this could be because, like for example, they may be doing this activity and feeling a little bored. So when you change the activity, the the misbehavior will, or whatever noise that they are causing could reduce and lessen. But sometimes these disruptions are caused by other factors, like the time of the day. Maybe they are just after the interval and they're all hyped up. Or perhaps it's the last period of the day. They are hungry or very hot. So, in order to address those issues, you can observe the class and then change the activity, because that might help to overcome any disruption. Also, take steps to talk to the students who are habitually disruptive, particularly do this after the class. This will give the students an opportunity to express reasons for their unacceptable behavior. They will be able to explain why they did it. So you give them an opportunity to say so. Then you can also have the opportunity to explain to the students the reasons why their behavior is not acceptable. So this is less confrontational. However, you will know that there are some instances when there are extreme problems or really serious um, like misbehavior taking place. So how are you going to handle a situation like that? So that should be done very discreetly. Using the institution is one step, but this step will be taken only if and when the problem is actually is extreme. Then you will have to notify the school authorities and they will take up the matter with the parent and guardian. So there are certain protocols that you will have to observe. You will be made aware of those. So in that event, do what is necessary and what has been determined that what action as a teacher you should take. But one important thing is, any punishment that hurts the student physically or emotionally is dangerous and harmful and should be avoided. Because research has found that both care and behavioral control were positively related to student engagement and minimized misbehavior. So you would then want to have, as we learned earlier, the teacher has to show care, has to take into consideration the students' emotions, so as well as have control. So if we do that in a balanced way, then we will minimize misbehavior. So now, do you remember what we discussed in this part of session 8? Yes, we looked at some of the challenges faced by ESL teachers in maintaining discipline in the classroom. We also looked at the importance of implementing rules and procedures in the classroom. And we considered some of the strategies that can help in maintaining discipline in the classroom. So the next session, session 4, will be continued in part 4. Thank you. Hello and welcome everybody to part 4 of session 8 of the Introduction to English Language Teaching course. This session is a continuation of our previous session on classroom management. Today, we will learn about the roles of teacher and student in creating a good learning environment. So at the end of part 4 of session 8, you should be able to identify the roles the teacher usually assumes when conducting a lesson in the ESL classroom, recognize occasions when these roles are assumed, and how these roles are carried out. Also, explain how students should contribute to a conducive learning environment. So before we commence our lesson, shall we begin with a little warm-up exercise? I would like you to take about 3 minutes and do the following activity. So here you have to write down 4 roles that you think a teacher should play in a classroom, and give an example to show the occasions when you are called upon to perform these roles. I'll give you 3 minutes to do this. Good. So that little exercise should have activated your schema on the role of the teacher, so that now you will be able to focus on the roles that a teacher assumes in the ESL classroom. So the ESL teacher plays a significant role in the language classroom. The role of the teacher constantly changes when teaching students. Now, three factors largely influence this change in role. One, the lesson that is being learned. Secondly, the students. And the third is other factors that might arise during a classroom session. Now, according to Harmer, he identified 8 different roles that a teacher takes on when managing a class, particularly focusing on the changing roles when conducting activities during a lesson. They are controller, assessor, organizer, prompter, participant, resource, tutor, and investigator. Now, Sanjaya, he identified 6 roles that a student takes on in managing not a student, rather, a teacher takes on in managing a class during the teaching and learning process. Now, they are the teacher as a learning source, facilitator, a manager, demonstrator, a guide, and a motivator. Now, some of the roles identified by Sanjaya are similar to that of Harmer. So we will now look more closely at each of these as to what each of these roles involves and the occasions when teachers are called upon to perform these roles. Where there is a similarity in the roles identified either by Harmer and Sanjaya, these will be discussed together. So first, we will look at the teacher as a controller. Now, when certain activities are performed, as for instance, after the introduction of a new grammar point, the teacher might introduce a language drill to enable the students to practice the language. Now, in this instance, the teacher becomes the focal point. He or she will stand in front of the class and the students are all involved in one task. So the teacher assumes the role of a controller. The teacher is the one who is completely in charge of the class and also dictates how the activity is to be performed. However, in doing that, the teacher needs to ensure that the control is supportive and also exercised in proper balance. The controller is referred to as a stage, rather a sage on the stage. You may have even heard that expression. That means that the teacher is the person possessing knowledge in front of the class. Sometimes the teacher may not remain in front of the class, but moves around when conducting some activities. But the teacher still is the one in control. Next, we come to the role as an assessor. Now, the teacher becomes an assessor when he or she assesses the activities of students during the teaching and learning process. This is by giving either written or oral feedback. Sometimes the teacher acts as an assessor and evaluates and grades the work of the learner. You do that too. However, again, in acting as an assessor, the teacher will be fair with all the students and be sensitive to the students' reactions and provide the necessary support. As an organizer is the next role. Playing the role of an organizer is considered a very challenging role because this involves organizing various activities during a lesson. And this can be particularly challenging. Also, the teacher takes on the role as an organizer when giving instructions, when organizing group and pair work, when initiating activities, when bringing activities to a close, when giving feedback. So all of these features need to be carefully organized. As you know, the success of many activities is dependent on the teacher's ability to provide accurate and clear instructions to the students so that they are clearly aware of the task that is required of them. The teacher organizes activities as efficiently as possible and also frequently checks that the students have understood, and she or he does not intervene in group and pair work unless for gentle correction or to prompt, that also if it is required and needed. Next, the teacher also can assume the role of a prompter and motivator. The teacher assumes the role of a prompter when students need assistance, maybe to complete given activities. Often you will find that your students are completely silent and also they look rather puzzled. From that you can understand that they have not really comprehended what you have taught them, or sometimes what is expected of them, maybe in an activity. So on these occasions, you rather, now supposing they what you have to rather than giving them the answer, you would give them some clues or prompts to assist them. So in this way, the teacher assumes the role of a prompter. Now, the teacher also assumes the role of a motivator when the student needs to be encouraged and motivated in the learning process. So, to motivate the learners, the teachers often make motivating statements, well done, excellent, good. We give those statements so that sort of encourages the students. Then we might tell them interesting stories. Also, we can present movies or videos. Sometimes, with kids, we can give them stars, rewards like badges and such. So that will prompt and motivate the learners. So that's how we take the role of a prompter or a motivator in the classroom during a learning session. Now, another role that can be assumed by the teacher is that of a participant. Now, you would notice that some activities in the class, such as practicing dialogues, provide an opportunity for the teacher to join the students in the activity by being one of the speakers. So you join in, you become one, in that dialogue, you become one participant. So when the teacher does this, he or she assumes the role of being a participant. Joining with the students also, like in role play activities, has another benefit. Because at that time, you are able to provide an opportunity for the students to practice the language with someone who speaks it better than they do. So get involved in the process of learning by inviting the students to participate in the activity with you. So you also join in the activity and become a participant. So this is another role that is assumed by the teacher during classroom activity. Now, the teacher also becomes a resource and an informer. So how is this? So how the role of the language teacher, how does she take on this role as being a resource person or informer? For instance, when the learners are engaged in group work, the teacher would usually walk around very discreetly and become a source of information. How? Where the students can now get help and assistance from you as a teacher during the time that they are engaged in this task. So there, on those occasions, you become the resource and an informer, particularly when the task is difficult and they need assistance. Another role that the teacher assumes in a classroom during learning activities is that of a facilitator. When she or he enables the students to engage in the process of learning and encourage self-learning in the classroom. So the facilitator role, we encourage the students to engage in self-learning. If it is a language activity that the students have to engage in, say, the teacher as a facilitator would give the learners the opportunity to overcome difficulties they face on their own as far as possible, rather than us giving the, now we facilitate learning. So as a facilitator, then we also would use appropriate media. For example, interesting pictures, other visual aids to help and assist students to understand the material which is being taught. And this, in addition, it provides a conducive learning environment. So the role of the facilitator is sometimes referred to as a guide on the side, that conveying the thought that the teacher is on hand to guide the learners. So that is the way we would act or assume the role of a facilitator. Now another role that a teacher assumes is a demonstrator. Now, how does a teacher assume the role of a demonstrator? So this is when the teacher shows how a task is to be performed, the process on which to do this, the procedure. For example, now supposing the students in the classroom, the English language classroom, have to speak in different situations. Like, for example, you want to teach them how to talk at the bank, how to speak at a restaurant. So now, when you direct the students by actually providing them an explanation, giving instructions, and showing them how to do it, then you become a demonstrator. You demonstrate how that activity should be carried out, or how the like a writing activity has to be done. So, but of course, you have to be careful that it is done in a balanced manner. Like it has to be with firmness and also fun. So you need to take that into consideration as well. Then another role that is assumed is that of a guide. So the teacher as a guide directs and keeps the students on track by giving them advice and direction on how an activity should be carried out, if and when help is needed. So remember that, only when they are needing some assistance. For example, if the learners need help, maybe say in writing an essay. Now, rather than telling them exactly now, giving the points to them, you become a guide by giving them information, by guiding them how to do the research on the topic. Then you can also guide them as to where you can locate the information. Then you guide them how to organize the gathered information. And it is important to ensure that the students sustain their interest in completing their assigned task. So you guide them to enable them to complete their task by not spoon feeding them and telling them exactly how to do that, but teaching them where they can get this information and how to perform it. So to do so, the teacher needs to provide encouragement and helpful direction. Now another role is that of a tutor. Now here the teacher assumes the role of a tutor by acting like a coach and a counselor in providing advice and guidance. So when students need clarification on particular aspects, then you can clarify the ideas, you can offer them advice, and in that way you perform this role as a tutor. The role is often assumed when students, like for example, when their proficiency level is high, like advanced rather, then it takes on the role, like for example, you would guide them by looking at their rough drafts, giving them suggestions on how to change it, like a report or something that they write on, then you could guide them, giving suggestions. So there you're acting as a coach or a counselor. Of course, with students with low proficiency level, they too need guidance, but in a meaningful way according to their level of proficiency and according to the guidance and counsel or coaching that they need. Then we come to the role of an, I should go back on that, as an investigator. Now, the role of an investigator relates to the teacher's own learning, the teacher, him or herself, their own personal professional development. So, how can a teacher, like the role as an investigator, how can that be performed? Now, the teacher should ensure that he or she keeps abreast with the latest information, the new methods that are being adopted, new techniques that are being taught, like by attending training courses, by attending seminars, workshops. Then now with the internet and so much of information, valuable information that is available, exploit that source and keep up to date. In fact, getting nice visuals, ideas on how to present information to the students. So those are ways in which you can look, investigate, find, and keep abreast with new information. So draw on all this, especially now with the internet. We keep, looking at the internet, trying to find out how you could improve your teaching, so investigate new methods and approaches. So from what we discussed so far, we realize that the teacher's behavior will change. That will be changing according to the nature of the classroom activities. Now, there is a distinction between the role of a controller and a facilitator, as we learned in our discussion now. Now, these two roles, that of a controller and a facilitator, are at two opposite ends of a client. One has control and the other freedom. So the teacher as a controller keeps a high profile. You remember we learned right in front of the class, directing, controlling all of the activities. Now, whereas the teacher as a facilitator maintains a low profile, but helps the student, guides the student to accomplish lots of tasks on their own, and make them feel accomplished or achieve certain things on their own as far as possible. So by doing so, the teachers allows the students the freedom to make choices of their own. So we need to strike that balance. Now, our discussion will turn to the role of the students in the ESL classroom. Now, this role is evolving. Now, unlike in the past, with increased research on how to facilitate greater learning, now we use communicative language teaching approaches, and the students are also becoming more active in their role as learners. And they play a major part in many aspects of the language in the language class. So, what is the student's role in the classroom to facilitate a conducive learning environment? So that's what we are going to discuss now. So now one way that students can do this is to contribute to class culture and accountability. Now in the classroom, they should cooperate with the teacher and agree upon classroom norms. Now that we learned when we were discussing rules and regulations, how the tutor and the teacher and the students get together and draw up a code of conduct like that, they would agree upon classroom norms. Now particularly, you want to do this with students who are at the higher grades. So when they are invited to provide input into the classroom rules, you will notice that they will become more accountable for their actions because they too have been involved in drawing up these rules. So they will be more willing to cooperate. The other is that the students will come to class more prepared to participate fully. So they become active participants in the classroom. So that is another role that they need to perform. They should be prepared to ask and read and answer questions, complete in-class assignments, and also align their behavior to the classroom norms that they had drawn up. A further way in which the students can contribute to a conducive classroom uh, environment is to take personal accountability. Now, here the students should acknowledge that they are a part of a learning community and they are required to contribute meaningfully to classroom activities. So, they need to take responsibility for ownership of their own actions. So, in this way, they will also contribute to a safe and positive classroom environment. Now, the other is students take on the role of being inquisitive. Now, what do I mean by that? That's interesting. Here, what we mean by being inquisitive is they are not passive learners, just just taking in what the tutor says. No, they are inquisitive. They will ask questions, and now we as teachers should nurture that curiosity. They should be active learners. They should endeavor to conduct individual, personal relationship research. Rather, this is particularly in the higher grades. When you give them projects, enable them to do the research, and you can ask them to do research on various activities. And also, they too would be now interested in adopting new learning methods. So, we can contribute to that by alerting them and enabling them now to adopt new learning methods, because there's lots of things that students now could do to enhance their own learning. So inquisitive learners, they will research subjects that are being studied using technology that is now freely available. And when they do their own research, you will observe that they will internalize the subject matter quickly because it becomes part of them. Then when they are having to sit at exams or if somebody asks an explanation, since they have done the research and they have internalized what the subject matter is, they will be able to explain it clearly. Rather than just coming to class and regurgitating some notes, here they have actually learned it themselves. Another is comply with behavioral expectations. Now we discuss this under rules and regulations and misbehavior and such discipline in the classroom. So this is important. Students have to strive to comply with all behavioral expectations. And in that way, they contribute to a good learning environment. The other is there are certain academic expectations required of students. So they must strive to comply with these academic expectations, like in the classroom. They have assignments to engage in. Then there are presentations, probably they have to engage in. Prayer and group work, there are projects. Then there are certain academic and ethical standards that they have to maintain. So if they comply with these expectations, actually the whole class is benefited, and then they will also find satisfaction because they have contributed and collaborated to have a very learning environment that is conducive and happy and proper. Another role that students is an expectation of students is to show respect, and that is very, very important because today showing respect is becoming less. So students need to show respect for themselves as well as for others. They need to dignify each other. So when interacting with one another, they have to ensure that they act in a way that is um, like building up good relationships, cooperation, and such. So in that way, they will contribute to a good learning environment, and also reduce disciplinary actions. So students should strive to be like attentive by listening and refraining from interrupting when others are speaking or maybe expressing an opinion. And maybe even in other activities, they need to show, like, walking through the corridors, even in the playground and such, they should show respect for others. So this will, to a large extent, reduce disruptions in the classroom. So now, can you remember what are the roles the teacher usually assumes when conducting a lesson in the ESL classroom? And do you remember on which occasions and how he or she assumes these different roles in the classroom when teaching a lesson? Also, did you recall how and why it is important for students to contribute to a conducive learning environment? So this brings us to the end of session 8, which consisted of 4 parts. So just to briefly outline some of the areas that were covered in the 4 sessions of session 8. Firstly, part 1, we talked about what is teacher talk and the strategies to ensure a sensible balance between teacher talk and student talk. In part 2, we looked at aspects of teacher's voice, the quality, quantity, audibility, tone of voice, and voice conservation. And also we learned how to maintain classroom discipline. And in 4, we learned how to create a positive classroom environment, particularly focusing on the teachers and the students' role. So these are some references that were used for this session. Thank you.